Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hey everyone, how can you not be pumped up with that intro music? I love it because it just gets me in the mood to record these episodes, and I am really excited to bring you today's episode. Today we are featuring Mary Beth Storjohann, who is the founder of Workable Wealth, a financial planning firm based in San Diego. Now, Mary Beth is a total rock star, and she's had a really fast-paced career. So this interview goes through her career path, in which she actually started out as a receptionist in a financial planning firm. She went on to work in several other firms before eventually founding her own firm before she turned 30. So Mary Beth actually continued to work at her last firm for over 6 months after she launched her new one. So you're definitely going to want to hear how she made that happen, including even some of the compliance stuff related to that decision. She also gives us a detailed look at her number of clients, revenue, as well as some info on where her first few clients actually came from. And then finally, she just had a baby. So if you're a recent or soon-to-be parent like I am, I think you'll get a lot out of listening to her story, because it really is just an awesome story of perseverance and really just making it happen. So as always, you can check out the show notes if you want to link to any of the resources that we mentioned in today's episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/10/10. So as you know, this month's episodes are brought to you by New Planner Recruiting, which is the leading recruiting firm integrating new financial planners into unique and exciting growth opportunities with firms nationwide. You can check them out at www.newplannerrecruiting.com. And you can also go listen to our interview with their co-founder, Caleb Brown, at xyplanningnetwork.com/9. Hey, Mary Beth, welcome to XYPN Radio. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So you were definitely on our short list for people that I wanted to have on the show because you have such a cool story. And for full disclosure, Mary Beth Storjohann, like Eric Roberge and Sophia Berra, are in my study group, FP Hackers. And when did we get that thing started? How long have we known each other?
Oh my gosh, over 2 years. So I think we started, well, no, probably right around 2 years. But I started talking to you before I even launched. Same as Sophia. Kits just gave me your name, and then I reached out and we fell down that rabbit hole.
I swear Michael has his hands in just about everything. So
he does. He's a great resource, I will say. I feel like I can always, if I'm stumped somewhere, I'm going to email Michael.
So if you need him, Michael at kitsis.com.
Yeah, send him more emails.
Because he only gets a few a day and he loves responding to emails. So I kind of want to kick off today just talking about your career path, because it has been you just have an awesome story. So let's go back to kind of, how did you discover financial planning? Did you get a degree? Like, did you know this is what you wanted to do?
Super traditional route. No, I went to college at San Diego State. And when I started school, I started as an international business major because my goal was to learn Italian and move to Italy. That was basically all I wanted to do. But for school, I had to pay my own way through college. So that meant me getting a job. And, in general, my background, I actually grew up in a family that struggled financially. So my parents actually, fought about money. There was a lot of anxiety about money in my house. And so those were some feelings that I took with me to college, just the general, fear of, how am I going to make it? How am I going to support myself? Those sort of things. And when it came time, for me to look for a job, I had a couple different ones. I worked at the dorms. Then I was slinging cell phones at the mall. And then my sophomore year of college, I got a job in the industry. I was working as a receptionist at a financial planning firm. So it was actually a great way for me to start. It was a general office job. That's why I took it. But me being able to sit in the front and see clients coming in and out and meeting with the advisors was really inspiring and educational to me, because I could see these clients coming in kind of having some fear and anxiety, and I saw the plans that were being created. I saw the peace of mind that they were getting, and I began to realize that there was a way for, you can control money instead of letting it control you. And that was a big lesson for me, and seeing, how happy and stress-free these clients were becoming basically prompted me to change my major. So I went from international business. I think I tried accounting before I actually got that job. And then I switched to finance. And at San Diego State, they actually had a financial services major. So I was actually able to major specifically in financial planning, which now I'm super thankful for. And then I was super thankful for, but in part of my career, there was a point where I wanted to thought I might get out of it completely because I was so unhappy. But now I'm actually very thankful. So I majored, yes, specifically in financial planning and was one of the youngest people, I think, at the time, because I worked in the industry, was still young and in college. I was able to sit for my CFP at a pretty young age. So that was really exciting to me as well.
So you got your degree in financial planning, essentially. And did you stay working at that same firm where you were a receptionist once you graduated?
So what happened, pretty fast at that firm, I climbed the ladder. I became a director of client services. So it was 3 advisors. There was myself, and then we ended up having a receptionist working under me. And it was a great firm while I was in college. They were very supportive, but there was unfortunately some restrictions in terms of my income, in terms of just even me advancing my education and sitting for the CFP. So when it came time for me to negotiate my salary, I realized I was pretty capped out and I wasn't happy about it. And so at that point in time, I made the decision to take the leap. So it was somewhere about a year after I think I graduated from college is when I transitioned, and I went from that firm. I ended up actually at Smith Barney before it was like Morgan Stanley, Smith Barney and all of that. I ended up at Smith Barney as a client service associate for a few months. And then from there, I ended up at Morgan Stanley in the financial advisor training program. And then from there, things spiraled and I ended up at a couple different places. But yeah, I stayed at that first firm probably for about 6 to 12 months after graduation, and then became pretty unhappy in terms of pay and just in general, some of the comments that were made to me in terms of, sitting for my CFP and other advancement opportunities.
Well, it sounds like they hired you for kind of one career path, which was true client services, reception and admin type work. And you really wanted to shift into planning. And it sounds like that opportunity wasn't available at that firm.
It wasn't that it wasn't available. It's that I actually, to be honest, was kind of feeling restricted almost as a woman. And
Fair
just
enough.
It wasn't advancing fast enough. I was able to sit for my CFP. They were encouraging me to sit for my Series 7. Just things were at the track was much slower than what I would have liked because I had already been there for 3 years. So I was basically deciding I wanted to look for opportunities elsewhere.
And they wonder why we can't get more females in financial planning. And whenever we do have awesome rock star females, they don't feel comfortable, inside of a firm that should have great opportunities.
Exactly. And we can go off on a whole nother tangent for that route. But, having young women in your firm, if you think they do a great job and somebody refers to them as your assistant and they're not your assistant, step in and correct whoever it is, I think is great. And then just being careful about ageism, especially being a younger woman. We get it all the time as being young planners. You get that kind of oh, were you even alive then comments. But, just younger women in general, I feel like automatically it's assumed that they're some type of an assistant or a secretary or something else.
Yeah, and I think that's, indicative of the fact that financial planning has been an old boys club for so long. And and I used to get the ageism stuff as well as a male, but I can grow a beard, and so I can make myself look older. You don't have that advantage.
I being a 5'3" petite woman and trying to establish your level of authority.
Yeah, and that is tough because there's kind of this long-standing, just cultural dynamic inside of financial planning firms. I think that's hard to break. And it could be partially the advisors, could be the owners, could be the clients that are just attracted to working with older male advisors. I don't know. There's a systematic issue for sure, but it pains me that is still an issue. But I think we can all admit that it is and something we'd like to continue to work on. Okay, so you worked at that firm, kind of shifted around, hit some fun sales jobs. What was your experience in Smith Barney and Morgan Stanley, just kind of in the work you were doing?
Okay, so are we being super candid?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so when I went to Smith Barney, it was a better paying job than when I was at the first firm. So I was client service associate, and they assigned me to 3 financial advisors at the time. I was absolutely miserable. Also, because I was younger, right out of college, I had been at a smaller firm there. I had flexibility. So I was miserable in terms of trying to fight for holidays off to spend time with my family. There was just a lack of it was kind of every man for themselves, even amongst the assistants as well. It was very strange. They would basically move you around and treat you like pawns. If your advisor didn't like you, you were automatically assigned to somebody else. And so it was really stressful for me. in that environment. I made it 6 months there, but I also developed a great relationship with another financial advisor who happened to be leaving. And he, clued me in and offered to take me with him, and I would be joining the sales side. I would end up joining the training program at Morgan Stanley when he was going. And I would basically be helping him transition his book. So that was very educational for me, just to even see the inside of like the wirehouse model. And so basically I decided, of course I'll jump, I would go with him. So we did the whole, dramatic walkout one Friday afternoon, spent the weekend trying to transfer clients, and realized now looking back, like the level of information you actually need to do that, it was crazy. But so I went with him to Morgan Stanley, joined the training program, which was a little ridiculous for me because I had majored in financial planning as well. So it was weird seeing that I was in the training program, had my financial planning certificate, was gearing up to sit for the CFP. And then there was like somebody who sold like Pepsi to like bigger companies or distributing, who was like also in the training program. So I think that was the really interesting thing for me, was just like how much of like a sales position it really was. And at that time, again, it was very educational. It was very interesting in terms of like sitting for the 7 and doing all of that stuff. But it wasn't for me. And I was still living in San Diego, and I had chose to move back up to LA. And so I started looking for another job again. And mind you, all this time I'm climbing the salary ranks as well. So I'm bumping up my salary because that was important to me. One of the big things I learned from that first firm was look out for yourself and negotiate. Like nobody is going to look out for you. Like you look out for you. As much as everybody feels bad about different things, I am your standard millennial career ladder hopper. Like I just hop around to basically make sure that I have the best position for myself. So within, I think, 3 months of being at Morgan Stanley, I realized the training program wasn't for me. A lot of my friends had moved away for college. So I decided to go back to LA, and I started looking for a job, and I landed a great job at a firm in Pasadena that I really enjoyed. And I was associate portfolio manager there for close to 3 years before I met my husband and moved back to San Diego.
So you make a couple really interesting points I want to highlight. And one of those, and I know advisors that own the firm and are looking to hire are going to cringe at the statement, but you got to pay your people appropriately. And young advisors are expensive. I mean, and we're seeing this more and more because there is such a shortage of talent. And I think historically, we've kind of, as younger advisors, and I was in the same boat, we didn't negotiate well because we didn't really know what we were worth. And now when you have folks coming out that think a Morgan Stanley training program, which is, my understanding is a very, very good training program that they have spent probably millions and millions of dollars developing, is useless because we got a degree in financial planning and basically mitigated the need for a huge training program like that. That means we have rock star advisors coming out of college, and they don't know what to do with them. And so you do have to pay them. And I do think salaries are going up for young planners. And you're a great example of the willingness to kind of bounce around a little bit when that ceiling hits and those opportunities stop. I do think a lot of people get stuck, but sounds like you were willing to kind of make the bump. So you went from Morgan Stanley, which takes a step back. That's kind of funny that he moved from Smith Barney to Morgan Stanley and then they bought Smith Barney. I wonder if that was awkward at all.
Yeah, it was so weird.
I did an internship with Smith Barney, so I got the full I got the full onslaught for a summer. It was great. Wonderful experience to show me what I did not want to do with my life. So you moved to LA, worked as assistant portfolio manager, and then which firm was that? If you can say.
Osher Vandevort Investment Management. Yeah, I can say it. I have nothing bad to say about them. It was a small boutique firm in Pasadena, and it was a father and son-in-law. Unfortunately, Robert Osher passed away earlier this year. So, but now it's run by James Vandevort, and basically it was the two of them, and it was myself, and then we had also a receptionist there. So it was pretty boutique. Managed I can't remember how much they managed at the time, but basically by working in the boutique firm, I realized I definitely like smaller firm atmosphere versus like the wirehouse atmosphere. I just could not, they make women like wear pantyhose, and I was just like, no, sorry. Especially living in California.
Is that a thing? Really?
It was a thing at the time. It was just kind of ridiculous for me, the dress code. So being smaller, I just love the casual. It's a little bit more casual, It still was, obviously, dressing nicely, but I really liked that it was more relaxed. And being at Osher Vandevort actually helped to launch my career, I believe, in terms of like I was already building my portfolio and my experience, but being there at a smaller firm allowed me to wear a variety of different hats. So I got experience not only working with like the C&D level clients, but in terms of operations management, in terms of marketing. And, unfortunately, like, when you're in it, you're kind of like, you're, going crazy because you're doing everything. But looking back now as a business owner, I learned a ton from that. And those were skills I was able to take and leverage into the firm that I changed to in San Diego. But by being there, I really advanced my skill level, and I really understood not only, the financial planning side was probably where I was a little bit not getting the experience, but in terms of overall business management and how to, do investments, those were all things I learned there. And the entrepreneurial spirit I realized like I can take all that and apply it elsewhere. So that was a good experience for me.
I was just recently talking to a young planner that was trying to decide between big firm and small firm, like a 50-person firm and a 5-person firm. And my question was, what's your future career path? What do you want? And he said, I want to own my own firm one day. And you just highlighted the same advice I gave him, which is when you work in a small firm, you get your hands dirty in everything. You see reception work, paraplanning work, operations, payroll, compliance, and planning, investment management. I mean, you really get to see it all. So if you want to own your own firm one day, as a solo entrepreneur, which we'll talk about here in a bit, you get to wear every single hat. You're the janitor and the owner.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I would be in there trying to fix trade glitches and then also doing the newsletter and then, preparing portfolio reviews at the same time. So, and then, I really value that experience now looking back. I was in my early, 20s, and being able to have that level of experience and expertise and to be trusted by the firm owner so much to take on those tasks was actually, I felt like I was well compensated at that firm. Yeah, when you're that tight knit, people drive you crazy at some points in time too. But I really appreciated the level of just like interest and, advancement that I had in my career at that point.
That's awesome. So you went back down to San Diego. What was the transition there, and kind of what did that firm look like?
Okay. So to be completely honest on my career path, what happened was I met my husband and I needed to move back down to San Diego. Was looking for a job, didn't quite line up at the time, so I ended up going back into Morgan Stanley's training program while I looked for another job.
Got pulled back in, I understand.
Got pulled back in, and then basically, ended up landing the job at, so Hoyle Cohen was a firm that I worked at before I started Workable Wealth, and ended up, and by the way that I found the position at Hoyle Cohen was, I started looking months in advance, lots of networking was going on. When I came back down to San Diego, I actually reached, was not really happy again in the training program, reached back out to James of Osher Vandervoort, and he had the idea of reaching out to our Schwab contact from when I worked there and providing my resume. And from there, my resume got passed around, and I happened to apply for the job at Hoyle Cohen at the same time. So it basically doubled up. So then being able to get my name from our Schwab contact and my resume really helped. So I will say networking and reaching out to contacts, doing informational interviews was a big thing in me landing the position there. So when I took the job, to be honest, I took a pay cut. When I started at Hoyle Cohen, I started just as, I think it was financial planner, basically started in the financial planning department. And I was a little intimidated, a little scared because I'd had all this experience in how to run the firm and do all these different things and had done like the planning software, but the way they did their planning was a little bit different. But the reason I took the pay cut there was also because I was offered the opportunity basically to gain like one of the owners basically said I'd have like a master's degree, in financial planning, the education level that I'd get. So I agreed to the pay cut based on that and then negotiated my way back up again. But yeah, so I started as financial planner. And then by the time I left, I was director of financial planning for the firm and basically managed the financial planning department. And then any plans that were produced for, I think there was like 7 or 8 advisors there at the time that were produced for their clients.
I want to take a step back and be sure we highlight for all of our younger advisors that are looking for a job, because I know there are a lot out there that are listening. And I hope you hear what Mary Beth just said about how she got her job. And that was hustle. It was reaching back out to old contacts. It was sending around resume through Schwab. Most people would never think to send it through the custodian, but those custodians are the central key point for many advisory firms. And so advisors are calling them saying, hey, we need young talent. How do we find somebody? And they are more than willing to try to get young talent into those firms. So that's a great way to leverage contacts that, I would have never thought of. And yet that was probably instrumental in you getting that position.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the relationship managers, the RAs work with like TDA or Schwab or wherever they're custodying their assets. They all have a relationship manager from those firms. So, striving to find out who the relationship managers are for your region might be a great person for you to get in front of because they have the contacts at all the other firms and they know who is looking. And and especially in times like today, it's you submit your application online. Unfortunately, you're, getting filtered into a pile of, other applications or resumes. So making sure that you build your network as early as possible is key. And keeping those relationships as well. Like I still keep in contact with James from Osher Vandervoort. He's been one of my great mentors. I still keep in contact with Joe Cohen from Hoyle Cohen. He's been an amazing mentor as well. So that's really key as well, is trying not to burn bridges when you leave.
Yeah, it's a really good point because it's a small world. And, I've seen this statistic. I don't know it off the top of my head. It's something like 3/4 of positions are never actually posted online. But what I can tell you about financial planning firms is that they generally can hire if the right person comes along, even if they are not actively recruiting someone.
Exactly.
And so having those contacts, and like you said, the relationship manager many times kind of sees issues before the advisor may see them in terms of their capacity and kind of what's going on. And so they may be able to kind of plug you in. So just another place to go if you're looking for a job. Relationship managers are easy to find. Look on LinkedIn, or you can just call the custodian. They'll tell you who the relationship managers are because they're regionally based. So you went to Hoyle Cohen, you worked your way up to director of financial planning. What happened? Why are you no longer there?
So there was basically, at Hoyle Cohen, there's certain career paths you can take. And in general, even when I was at Osher Vandervoort, I had started a financial blog basically under an alias that was called Fabulous and Financially Savvy. It's no longer there, so you can't Google it and find anything. But it was geared towards, 20-something ladies, and it would say things like, I think it was like, 10 excuses for not saving. It compared the Roth IRA to a little black dress. It was basically trying to make financial planning fun for, young females. And so that was, that was always my interest. My friends would come to me and ask questions. And, I was, as much as, I had these career paths and I had these opportunities presented in front of me, I worked at firms that were bringing on $1 million clients. And that just seemed completely intimidating to me, to the point where I was looking to get out of the industry for a little bit. Even when I was at Osher Vandervoort and while I was at Hoyle Cohen, I was looking for other opportunities and trying to figure out, maybe I'm in the wrong industry altogether. I don't want to, it's scary to try and go after somebody my grandpa's age and with $1 million and try and convince them to, let me manage their money. And especially when you're called kiddo and different things and, across the board. So, it was a little bit of toughening my own skin, but it was also, I didn't have the opportunity to try and actually work with the kind of clients I wanted to work with. So while I was, building my career path at Hoyle Cohen, they kind of pair younger advisors with older advisors, and you can, inherit these books. Unfortunately, they were looking to pair me with somebody it was just not a good fit with in terms of personality, and I wasn't happy in terms of what that would mean for me and the types of clients that I would be working with. So it had been kind of a long time coming in terms of me trying to figure this out. At that time, I had already begun researching and reaching out to other people, I think a year in advance of my leaving. And it came time they were basically gave me this is the path you're going to go on. And I basically was like, no, I'm not. My husband was deployed at the time. And I remember emailing him this is what happened at work today. I don't think I can, do this. And basically, while he was floating in the middle of the ocean, we agreed that I would, quit and launch Workable Wealth. And so that was kind of what started, that email started the path that I went down in terms of phasing out of Hoyle Cohen, actually. So when it came time to me actually presenting, I went in with the mindset that they might just send me packing automatically, here's my notice, maybe, just in case, because you never know, how people are going to handle things. But when I went in to talk to the owner at the time about transitioning out, they tried to make it work to where I could stay there actually, and to where I could possibly bring on some of these clients that I wanted to bring on. Unfortunately, and that's also could be an amazing opportunity if your firm offers that to you. For me, I was really stuck on building my own brand, though. I just felt that in terms of the clientele that I wanted to go after, it wouldn't really mesh well if the bigger picture still said that, we work with $1 million clients and there's the older, happy retired couple on the website. I didn't really feel like I'd have the ability to build what I wanted to build. So what happened after that, though, there was a little bit back and forth, and then it was basically agreed that I would just kind of phase out. So it was they were really supportive. I wasn't competing with them directly because they weren't taking on these kinds of clients. So if anything, I think I cut my time to 27 hours a week initially. Maybe I think I was doing 3 days a week. basically from August of 2013 through December while I built up Workable Wealth. And then I think in the first few months of 2014, I was like 5 or 10 hours just basically like helping them to make the final transition. So it was helpful on both ends in terms of me being able to supplement my income and then helping to retrain and get the department, set up for whoever else was coming in to take over my position. So it was a win-win. And I really enjoy that. Like, I still go back. Hoyle Cohen just sent me a really amazing, baby gift for Ellie, who was just born. So stuff like that, like those, and that's why I'm a big proponent of keeping those relationships and ensuring that people know that you appreciate the opportunity they've provided, but, there's this other path or this other passion that I want to pursue. And I was very blessed, and I think like they were helped out a lot as well by my staying there. So that's kind of how it all happened.
All right, I'm going to have to admit, I think you have told this story enough times that you are not emphasizing just how crazy awesome that transition was. So I want to recap this to be sure that we're capturing this properly. You went into your boss's office and basically they said, here's your career path. And you said, I don't think so. Don't really want to do that. I think I'm going to go launch my own firm. And they said, you know what? And I will tell you, this happens all the time. Well, why don't you do that underneath our umbrella? And we'll own it. And you can just build this underneath our umbrella. And for the advisors out there, please stop making this offer. It's not a good offer. There's other ways to structure this. But, and you said, no, I think I'm still going to start my own firm. And they said, okay, how about you stay on for 20 hours a week, be our director of financial planning for the next 6 months while you build your own business on the side. That's awesome. It really is. And it speaks to the firm owner or whoever was kind of ultimately making the decision here. And it speaks to you as well, that you were in a position and you put yourself in a position there that you were valuable, and they knew that they wanted you to stay on for as long as they could keep you. Mm-hmm. And you were also trustworthy enough that they weren't worried about you poaching, their clients. And I think the big emphasis that as well, that's really important that you said was you weren't competing with them. You weren't you weren't trying to work with their clients. Now, do I remember correctly that you actually started getting some referrals from Hoyle Cohen to Workable Wealth?
Yeah. So obviously all the advisors are out there hustling and doing their own thing. But as they would come across people that, weren't a fit for Hoyle Cohen, knowing that they had me to refer them to was actually very helpful. So yeah, some of my first clients actually came from advisors at Hoyle Cohen, which, was amazing as well. Very helpful. And same thing here. If I come across a client who's not a fit for Workable Wealth now and they're San Diego based, of course I'm going to send them to Hoyle Cohen because, I trust and know the advisors, I know the process, and I can speak to it pretty well.
I get so excited hearing this story. I really do, because I wish this was like the norm, but it's so awesome that you got to work 27 hours a week, supplement your income, start your own firm. You got referrals from your old company and you were able to maintain that relationship. And now I know there are a lot of young planners out there thinking like, oh, I wish I could do that. And there's no way my firm owner will do it. And that may be true, but there's also a lot of people that maybe have that opportunity and they burn the bridge in a way that doesn't allow for this transition. So this is a very real possibility. I mean, talk about an awesome side hustle.
It's almost rational. I think a lot of people, there's so much fear. And that's and I won't like toot my own horn, but I know I'm unique in that I'm not afraid to ask for things and ask for, what I want in terms of, like I said, I learned from that first firm when they tried to cap, when I could take my CFP based off of somebody else taking their CFP. I learned that nobody will look out for me like I look out for me. And so I learned then to ask for, higher salaries and to fight for myself. And I think a lot of people still feel, obviously you have to have the education and the, expertise to kind of back your fight up. But going in and asking, you're not going to get fired to to ask for a raise. You're not going to get fired if you want to ask for a raise. You go in and ask, you set the bar higher and try and negotiate from there. A lot of people wait to see what's handed to them and then they just go in and quit. Why not try and keep the conversation going and see what can work so it's mutually beneficial? Because obviously it costs more money for that company to find and hire somebody and train them again also. So those are things to keep in mind, is if you can help the company out and you can also do your own business on the side a few days a week, and phase out, go in with that pitch and see what happens. They might send you packing, but if you go in with this is what I'm thinking so that it's a win-win, I mean, why not start the conversation there as opposed to saying, I quit, I'm going to start my own firm. Granted, I did start there, and then it was a conversation around, once it was pitched to start underneath Hoyle Cohen, then it kind of became a conversation of, okay, how can we make this work? Because it's not going to work under Hoyle Cohen. So now what's the next step?
Yeah. And I mean, you probably had to make that pitch. You had to lay out, hey, this is how it's beneficial to you. This is how it's beneficial to me. If you had gone in and said, hey, I'm quitting to start my own firm, they probably would have been like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I did go in like originally, like, I'm going to it's not work for me. I'd like to start my own firm. Here's my passion. And that's when it started like, well, why not under Hoyle Cohen? And that was a few weeks back and forth until I was able to say, I really want control over the brand. How about, I reduce time here and then we see how that works. And then it was kind of like, then it was like it was a phase out, which worked well. So that's kind of how the conversation started. But again, it was, because it was an open dialogue and the relationship was solid as it was. So that's one of the things. If you're a good employee and you're valued or you're providing a ton of value and that they're going to be in trouble when you leave, those are all things that you have that you can bring to the table for negotiating.
Especially for a position like that and in smaller firms, it's expensive to hire. It takes a long time. There's always the risk of getting the wrong person. So, many times advisors are smart enough to hang on to good people and are willing to make it work. Now, let's talk about the actual compliance logistics of this scenario, because I know there are a couple different ways to do it. Did you just stay on as an employee? Did you become a contractor? Did they hire RIA? Like what was the actual, I guess, the compliance logistics side of how you worked for this other firm while you started your own?
I believe I stayed on for a few months as an employee until I launched Workable Wealth, basically until like the paperwork was filed. I believe I stayed on. And then I transitioned to contractor, and they confirmed with their compliance department, like their compliance person, we had like our own compliance manager there too, that there was no conflicts of interest and everything like was secure and good to go. So there was no big change because I'd already signed my non-compete non-disclosure when I started. So that all kind of just like carried over basically. And then I just transitioned to contractor from there.
So they hired you individually. They did not hire Workable Wealth.
Yes. Yeah. They hired me individually.
So it's actually a misnomer, I think, that some folks have, that you cannot be essentially attached to two firms at once. And you absolutely can from a compliance perspective. You can be, because you were probably an IAR of Hoyle Cohen, and then you were, of course, an IAR of Workable Wealth. And that's actually okay, is my understanding. And it sounds like that's what you did.
Yes. As director of financial plan, I don't know if I was an IAR at Hoyle Cohen. I think I was. I think I was like once I had started working with clients there as well. Yes, but everything basically kind of worked out well. I didn't actually. I don't think I was on an IAR. I don't think I was on their ADV actually. I'm almost positive I wasn't. Fair because enough. It's director of financial planning, and they were having me work under somebody else's existing client, so I wasn't an IAR there quite yet.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So another structure, just for listeners, if you're curious about this, another structure that could have been the scenario is that Hoyle Cohen could have hired Workable Wealth to provide the services. And sometimes hiring an RIA in that scenario is actually easier from a compliance perspective than the independent contractor or employee route. If you're an advisor exploring some opportunities like this, you could consider actually allowing your RIA to be hired, but that's an aside.
Yeah. Workable Wealth's been contracted in to do financial planning for other firms as well. So
it's a really great side hustle, is to be able to go in and help provide that expertise to existing advisors that are looking for some help but can't afford to hire a full-time person.
Exactly.
So you launched August of 2013. You really went full-time sometime in early 2014. How's it been going? I mean, what did that ramp up process look like for you?
I was extremely blessed to have the opportunity at Hoyle Cohen as well. So, even before I decided to launch my own firm, as I mentioned, I was reaching out to people. I think I talked to you when I had made the decision, but I was looking at other people online, like the Jeff Roses, the Brittany Castros, Lauren Lyons Cole, reaching out to them and talking to them and seeing what they were doing with their firms, kind of like crafting what I wanted it to look like. And while I was at Hoyle Cohen, I had the blog before, so I used that to continue building my name and putting my name out there in terms of media. So I started volunteer writing for the Financial Planning Association's blog. I was published there once a month. The FPA in San Diego had some partnerships with the San Diego Union Tribune, so I was getting published in terms of like Q&As there. And then I was also contracted in. I wrote for Go Grow Finance, I think, while I was still at Hoyle Cohen as well. So I basically was able to leverage my time. Even before I launched, I was getting my name out there and getting published and started kind of contacting and connecting on Twitter. Once I decided I was going to launch, I built my presence on Twitter as well and started connecting with other industry professionals and peers. So the launch process from that was really interesting because I was able to leverage the writing and things that I had done before into media recognition and other things. So that continued to build my brand. And then while I was at Hoyle Cohen, I also received a couple referrals. And then from there, it kind of all just took off. I think I went to FinCon in October 2013. I didn't go last year because of all the pregnancy stuff. So yeah, October 2013, being San Diego based, I stayed with Sophia, Jamie Tardy. We shared a room together. And then from there, I met Pat Flynn, Caleb Wojcik. And then from there, I was interviewed on some podcasts. I was interviewed on Pat Flynn's podcast, Smart Passive Income. I was on Entrepreneur on Fire. I was able to get, on some of the top podcasts that are on iTunes. And then that kind of also, again, I had already built my business up. So it just everything just started happening. I started getting referrals locally and then just clients across the country. But I already had, the benefit of a ton of media attention as well, just by having the niche and being focused in on Gen Y and millennials. And so now 2015, one of the things when we met in our mastermind group, I think, was that February, November? I can't remember.
Early 2015.
Early 2015, I had actually scaled my goal for the year back a little bit because I'm going to have a baby this year. So I thought, okay, I'll give myself a little bit of a leeway. But 2015 in general, definitely averaging 2 clients per month. Going to pass my income goal that I had scaled back, probably going to pass my income goal that I originally had for the year. So business growth is going well in terms of clients, in terms of the word getting out. And it's really a mix between having the online presence through media and then having, referrals from existing clients now as well. So that's been really exciting to see, is that just 2 years into it, I'm getting referrals from existing clients. And then I'm also still being able to build and have clients, across the country. I have clients out of the country as well. So that's been pretty cool.
Oh, so many great takeaways in that little bit. First off, clients come from everywhere, and it's so important to have a niche. And that's having that really focused niche market is so critical, or niche, as you call it. I actually don't know the right way to say that word.
Struggle.
Our next episode actually is going to be myself and Michael Kitces, and we're actually talking about kind of the niche, having a niche focus. So if you want to learn more about what that means, definitely tune in for the next episode. But your clients came from all over. We're talking podcasts, meeting bloggers, getting quoted in the media, your own writing, local referrals, getting out, and probably some local hustle. Like, people that are starting firms always say like, oh, well, where am I going to get my clients? And the answer is from all over. And it really does take almost a shotgun approach to kind of throw a lot of stuff out there, because you never really know what's going to work for you and what you're going to be good at. You are phenomenal on podcasts. And so that has translated into quite a few clients, right? I mean, just from being on totally unrelated podcasts. I mean, if anybody's listened to Smart Passive Income with Pat Flynn, phenomenal podcast, nothing to do with financial planning. But he has tons of listeners that hear your story and they hear what you do and they think, oh, that's what I need, And so I think too often we think too narrowly when it comes to marketing, but there's a lot of really broad-based opportunities out there.
There's so many opportunities. The podcasts have been amazing. Facebook groups have been amazing for me. And I think one of the things is, again, I work with Gen Y millennials, but a lot of my clients range from late 20s to early 40s. So it's actually, there's like a cross there of what happens. And I think that's a result from, I end up really having a niche in terms of military clients, professional women. And so it's even just narrowed down more from Gen Y-ish. Like I have specific people that I go after. If you go to my website, I very rarely have like single dudes reaching out to me to
Fair
work
enough.
with them.
Yeah.
But that's just, and that's how I work and how I speak and those things. And that's fine. So it's a lot of, professional women that reach out to me as well.
So let's kind of timeline this out a little bit. So how old were you when you launched your firm in 2013?
I was 29.
29 years old. So to any of the ladies that are out there listening, stop telling me that you're only 35 with 12 years of experience and don't have what it takes, because Mary Beth is a classic example of somebody that was very successful before 30. And so how many clients do you have now?
Upwards of 30 plus sick. I do a lot of project planning as well. So 32-ish, I think, is what I'm at right now. Somewhere
32
around there.
Ongoing plus kind of the project work.
Yeah, plus project work. So I usually get 1 to 2, probably at least one project plan every couple months as well.
So, yeah, I mean, if you look at ongoing clients, you've been in business around 24 months. So over 1 new client a month, ongoing, plus some of this project-based work. I mean, you've probably been averaging 2 clients a month would be my guess. And because you're always going to have a few clients roll off and that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's definitely it. So I've had a couple roll off. Yeah. And then the ongoing this year definitely has picked up more than last year.
So do you mind if I ask kind of like general revenue numbers from Do you remember what your revenue was in that first year? Because I mean, you were only in business 4 months out of the actual year in 2013. Do you remember, did you break even during that time period?
I think it was like, I don't know. I'm trying to remember. It was either a $5,000 loss or a $5,000 income, but I still had Hoyle Cohen income also.
Right. So that doesn't include that side hustle income. That's just business.
Yeah. I think, I think it was like a 5,000 write-off is what I had the first year because I had all the business startup expenses that kind of got clumped in right in the front as well in terms of, I made the decision to pay for a compliance person to get me registered because I was pulling my hair out. So
no, that makes sense. So the first few months, and I'd have to pull back up my old numbers, but I think I did the same thing because I launched in August. So the first year was kind of a wash. And then going into 2014, what did that look like for you in terms of kind of clients and revenue and that sort of thing?
So last year, I'm trying to think, I know I had with side hustle stuff, I don't remember exactly what it was. I was able to replace my original starting income at Hoyle Cohen last year. I do know that much.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, I definitely was able to ramp that up and get back to where I was when I started, which again, my husband and I talk and he always says, we went into this thinking you maybe wouldn't make income for 3 years and look at what you're doing. So yeah, I definitely was able to replace my income from Hoyle Cohen last year. And then this year I'm on track to have a 6-figure year.
That's insane. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I definitely, like I said, not at all what I expected in over 2 years. And I know, and one of those things that you feel too, there's the abundance mentality. And then there's also is that enough? Because you get the brokers from, bigger firms or just people who've been in it a while. Obviously that's not enough to some advisors, sometimes it is, but sometimes people think I can't live off of that. So for me, I think that's I'm super excited to be able to have that as a very real prospect for the year. Other advisors might think that that's nothing. So that's just, wherever it falls for you. For me, I'm excited about that.
That's a heck of a story because in your second full year in business, you're going to hit 6 figures and you had a baby, which is awesome. So, yeah. I mean, she was born what was her birth date?
She's 7 weeks today. She was born July 17th.
Okay. So we're recording this like 2 weeks before we're actually going to launch. So yeah, July 17th, that's, oh my gosh, that's so incredible. And so you've taken, you basically I remember you saying you hit your growth goals really early on in the year because you had kind of scaled back and now you feel comfortable ramping it back up a little bit. So talk to us a little bit about what life's like as a mom owning a business because you work from home. How is that working for you so far? I know it's early.
So it's been an adventure. One of the best things about having the recurring revenue stream is I didn't have to worry about applying for, California disability, for example. I had the recurring revenue stream. So even being able to set my clients up and prepare them ahead of time, I sent an email out somewhere, I think when I was around 4 or 5 months pregnant saying, hey, this is what's going on. There's going to be there's going to be a workable wealth baby. You'll hear from me in the future months. And then about 2 months before I had Ellie, I sent an email to clients saying, here's how things are going to go. I'm going to take, 4 to 6 weeks off or 4 to 8 weeks off once I have her. And then, anybody who's due for a review is getting pushed up ahead of time. So I made sure that I met with everybody. I hustled to get everybody in ahead of time. And then once she was able to make her arrival, I sent an away message that basically said, had a baby. If this is the client's email, I'll try to get back to you in the next few days. I will be checking email, but otherwise I won't be returning until the end of August. And I basically was able to redirect, media people and those sort of things as well. And I shut my calendar down. For the first 2 weeks that I had her, my calendar was shut down completely to meetings. My husband's able to work from home every now and then as well. So I did open up a few calendar slots here and there for consultations, if anybody, new clients. And basically it's been really, I've been very fortunate to have the business that I have because, to be completely honest, I had a lot of, you, Alan, know that I had a lot of post-pregnancy issues. So knowing that my business is set up also to continue running, I was in the hospital for a few days and things are still kind of running smoothly. My clients have been super supportive. I had Ellie 2 weeks early in general as well. So I was able to, I had meetings scheduled the day that I had Ellie as I was trying to wrap things up. So I got to send an email out to hey, if you're on this email, that means that I've been, I either owe you a follow-up or, we were scheduled for a meeting that's going to get pushed back. And I got so many well wishes and congratulations from clients. And I've gotten, baby gifts. And, that's been the most amazing part to me is just how supportive the majority of my clients have been. Just how loving and compassionate and just interested they are and checking in on me. And so that's been the most amazing part. I see why other, being a young person in the industry and seeing all these other advisors building their, their client relationships with, the $1 million ones, for example, but just knowing that I have these clients right now, that I'm coaching them and that I already have those relationships where I feel like they're clients and also becoming friends and you're invested in their lives. Now I see, why people do what they do. And I feel like that much more attached to the business. And, for right now, trying to figure out the balance, it's still going to be pretty easy. I'm opting not to do a nanny. I'm doing daycare. So I'll still be able to do, my work full time, but I have the flexibility to pick up my daughter when I want to, or to take a day off when I want to. And that's what I love about being a business owner right now, is I have that fluid flexibility to where if there's no meeting, nothing on my calendar, I can be present to raise my daughter, as opposed to doing the, 9 to 5 and working for somebody else. And not that Hoyle Cohen wasn't very supportive. They were very flexible as well. But knowing that I have complete control of my schedule gives me a lot of peace of mind.
Yeah. And listeners probably know by now, like I went through this myself. I have a 1-year-old, little Ridge. So we have Ridge and Ellie are our hackers babies so far, only 2 in there to date. I talk to a lot of young planners that are concerned about starting a firm in their early 30s. I'll admit I hear this more from female advisors than I do from males, but I hear it from both sides that, I'm looking to start a family. I don't want to take the risk of not having a salary and that sort of thing. And I hope they hear in your story, it wasn't like it took you 10 years to ramp up to a point to where you could have a baby and make this work. You were able to do it in just a couple of years. And I was in the same boat, that it just took a couple of years to get the business under you. And then all of a sudden it's amazing how flexible it is, and I was in the exact opposite position that Ridge actually came 2 weeks late. And so, babies never come when they're supposed to. And so it's like this scheduling nightmare and having to move things around. And that's really hard to do when you have a boss and when you own your own firm and you can just kind of let clients know and let contacts know, like, hey, this is kind of what's happening, and then take some time off. It's an amazing feeling to be able to be in control of your schedule.
Yeah. And like as the rest of the hackers know, like I'm probably also a workaholic. And so knowing, that I have the ability to, some clients might not be as understanding, and you realize as you're building your practice, like I'm at the point now, we talked about this, like maybe the clients that I'm realizing aren't a fit, I can, send them to somebody else who would be a better fit. So I'm at that point now where I actually feel comfortable that I can send, I'm not scraping for income. I can send clients on their way and refer them out to other advisors if I don't think that we're a good fit to work together. And knowing that I'm not stressed out after only, 24 months running the business, basically knowing that, I have the ability to have the income to be there for my daughter, and then to also like really be mindful about the types of clients that I want to take on and who is a fit for me and who isn't, gives me, just so much more confidence. And one of the things is it was terrifying to launch. I had the hackers. We all reached out to each other, and Sophia brought us together, and I had the side income. And there's always the thing that basically, if it doesn't, what worst case scenario, you go back and get a job. Like worst case, that's the worst case, is everybody's going to still be employable unless you do something crazy to tarnish your name. Like you go back and get a job. And I think that's like, until like my best friend sent me a 3-part text message basically. And that is actually what's lit the fire under me. She was like, you're never going to be happy working for somebody else. You're holding yourself back. And, worst case scenario, you can go back 12 months from now and get the same job making what you're, making now basically, which totally was true. I have, there's like all this like fear and anxiety, but I think we build that up to ourselves and make it a lot scarier than it is. I mean, it's a lot of work, but we're planners and we know how to break steps down to little steps for our clients and how to like do things. And I think we second guess ourselves and we somehow get paralyzed when we're in it, but we know how to coach people through it. So why not do it ourselves?
So true. I love that. I had never heard you say that about your friend texting you, because when we had Sophia on in that was episode 3, she said the same thing, that's what her mentor said. That was kind of the realization I came to. I think that's where we kind of get to. And in the comment earlier about young planners are in such high demand, there will always be a job out there for you. And nothing makes you more valuable than having run a firm. Exactly.
Yeah. Having your own business experience all around. I mean, so what if it didn't work, or, you figure out you want to close up shop because you'd rather, be a partner somewhere else. I mean, having that experience and going through, what it took to register, even, the level of comfort I had when I initially had to do the sales of working with clients and trying to figure out what my pitch was, I hated sales. I never wanted to do sales, and I was so against it. And now I realize it's just relationship building and educating. It's educating people on what you do. And sales is such a sleazy word. And that's a big thing with getting younger people into the industry, is they think they have to sell something. But realistically, it's relationship building. It's being genuinely interested in people and then educating them on, money topics and how to make smarter decisions. That's sales. It doesn't need to, doesn't need to have that weird thing. And that was what I was most fearful of. And when I realized how to explain, what I do better, and how to I crafted kind of a way to flow through my messaging that works for clients to help them understand, things kind of started to fall into place from there.
What an awesome story. So what is next over the next 12, 24 months for Workable Wealth and Mary Beth Storjohann?
World domination.
Always.
Always. So my goal, basically, especially with having a little one at home, continuing to grow at least, 2 clients a month, building up the team, obviously, to be able to take on more. And then just continuing, I hope to have a book out actually in January of next year. So I'm working right now on getting that all put together. Actually, I want it actually to be a physical print book. So
that's awesome. That's a huge project.
Yeah. So while I have a newborn, so being able to be present for Ellie is a big part of it. So we're lucky, again, to she'll be close to home still for the daycare, having that balance, and then just continuing to build the brand. Because of the way that Workable Wealth has grown and the media presence and the connections that I've had, I've also been very lucky to have a lot of speaking engagements that have been booked. So continuing to do that's actually something I'm very passionate about, and ensuring that a lot of what I do is still client focused in terms of just spreading the message. I hope to have a clear-cut goal that I announce next year in terms of how many people I want to impact with, just in terms of helping and assisting on the financial literacy and financial education aspect. So setting some bigger goals for myself, but also, again, being able to balance that time with my family as well is a big priority. So continuing the path and then just setting bigger things.
That sounds like world domination plus family. That's totally reasonable. So I want to ask you the last question, which is something that we ask all of our guests. And that is, if you could go back to your 22, 23-year-old self that was in that first job as a receptionist, what is one thing you wish you could go back and tell yourself, just something you wish you had known?
I wish I had known that I would get to where I am today. I wish I would have known that you will be able to follow your dreams. You will be able to pursue your passion. You're not on the wrong path. And that was one of the things that kind of started, while I was on it. I wish just going through all of these changes, I just can't remember getting turned off, but it was what I knew. And I had majored so specifically that I felt almost stuck so many times. I wish I could tell myself, I wish I would have known, actually, you will own your own firm. You will help the people that you want to help. That would have been probably such a stress reliever to me. And just would have alleviated so much questioning and concerns, just knowing it'll happen. Just be patient and you will figure out a way. I think that would have been amazing.
And I hope our young planners that are listening in hear us when we say, if your goal is to start a firm, if this is what you dream of and doing financial planning is what you love, those opportunities exist. And you just have to keep putting one step in front of the other, just taking one more step, one foot in front of the other, because ultimately your dreams will be whatever you make them and your future will be what you make it. So Mary Beth, thank you so much for taking the time to be on today. I wish we could have had the little one on. Maybe we'll have to do a Periscope with her next time
yes.
I'm in town, because we need to show the world. I should probably Periscope with Ridge here soon, just so everybody can meet him. But
do we have the XYPN onesies yet? Are those?
They are coming. Thank you for calling us out on air. Yes, we have XYPN onesies coming for all of the new babies that we have from our members. So I'm very excited about them. We'll have to post a link or post a picture in the show notes once we get them.
Definitely.
Ellie will be our onesie model because she should be the right age.
Yes, perfect. Thanks so much for having me. This has been fun.
Thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. MB is a really good friend of mine. And like I said in the intro, such a rock star. I'm thrilled that we got her on to tell her story. I hope you take away some of the key lessons about how to even negotiate your salary, having the guts to do what it takes to really live your great life, and some really great concrete tips on gaining new clients. You can check out the show notes for all the resources that we mentioned at xyplannetwork.com/10. And just as a reminder, if you want to ask our guests questions and be able to interact with them, be sure to sign up for our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP, or you can text XYPN Radio to 33444 to gain access. Now, all of this month's shows are brought to you by New Planner Recruiting, which is the leading recruiting firm for financial planners nationwide. New Planner Recruiting offers many resources to coach and support Gen Y planners as they launch into the profession. Firms nationwide partner with New Planner Recruiting to source, screen, and integrate the perfect fit for their needs. Led by passionate and experienced financial planners, New Planner Recruiting has a refined, dedicated, and personalized plan to help both candidates and firms position themselves for success. Now, I worked with NPR when I first graduated college in 2010 and was really impressed by the process that they use to not only evaluate and place young planners, but to be sure they're placing them with the right firm. So be sure to check them out at newplannerrecruiting.com, as well as listen to the episode that we had with their co-founder and CEO, Caleb Brown, and episode 9. You can find that at xyplanningnetwork.com/9. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time.
You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.